Hi everyone, how you doing? Dan here, and today we're going to have a look at the absolute minefield of video formats on Instagram in 2021. We're going to have a look at the best settings to edit your videos and set up your sequences in Adobe Premiere. And then we're going to have a look at the best export settings to make sure your videos will upload perfectly to Instagram. Just before we get started, I just want to say thank you very much for watching this video. And thank you to all of you who have been watching, liking, commenting and subscribing to my channel. It honestly does mean a lot, and we are slowly growing, which is absolutely awesome. Just the other day I passed 1,000 views on YouTube, which I know isn't much, but for me that's a huge deal, and I'm just so happy about that. As I've mentioned in the past, I want to be doing some kit reviews, some more tutorials. I want to get out in the field and do some travel videos. I want to pretty much do as much as I can with this channel. So as soon as I'm able to get out, you're going to see a lot more content starting to be put on the channel. So if you do like the sound of that, or if you do like the videos I've already been putting out, like, comment and subscribe. Honestly, it means the world to me, but thank you for that. Let's get into the video. So this video is going to follow two basic principles the entire way through. Principle number one is we want to take up as much of our audience's screen real estate as possible. Whilst they're scrolling, we want to take up the entirety of their screen. And principle number two is we want to match Instagram's video settings as much as possible, so Instagram doesn't have to compress our video any more than it needs to. So when we upload a video to Instagram, no matter what, it's going to change the frame rate to 30, so you might notice your video looking a little bit different, and it's also going to change the bit rate to 3 megabits a second. So the idea is here we want to match these settings as much as we can in Premiere, so Instagram doesn't have to do any formatting to it. So I'm sure you've all had this experience in the past. You've worked really hard on a video, you've put all the time in, and in Premiere and on the export it looks absolutely amazing. You put it on your phone to put on Instagram, and by the time it's on Instagram it looks like it's been shot on a potato. So this is what we're trying to avoid. The reason it's looking like that is because Instagram isn't applying all this compression to make it fit on their servers and, you know, play back easily on users' phones. So if we match these settings as much as we can in Premiere, we're going to almost bypass that step on Instagram, and our video should look a little bit better. So them two principles are what we're going to be looking at really. So firstly, let's take a look at taking up as much of our audience's screen as possible whilst they're scrolling. So we've got 3 video formats to think about here. So number 1 is stories, number 2 is Instagram Reels, and number 3 is just standard Instagram posting. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, we want to take up as much of the screen as possible. So with stories and Reels, it's actually possible to take up pretty much 100% of the screen, which is exactly what we want. We're right there in our audience faces. And whilst we're scrolling just on Instagram, we can take up a good portion of it as well. So let's have a look at a couple of aspect ratios and resolutions, what we're going to be using. So number 1 is stories. So we're going to be looking at a resolution of 1080 by 1920, which is just 1920 by 1080 rotated. And that gives us an aspect ratio of 9:16 for the vertical video. That's going to be the exact same for Reels too, so 1080 by 1920. And whilst we're just posting to a regular Instagram feed, we're going to be looking at an aspect ratio of 4:5, and that equates to a resolution of 1080 by 1350. Now again, as I've mentioned, this is just to take up as much screen real estate as possible. Now in the past, I got in the bad habit of exporting my videos at double these resolutions, so that kept the aspect ratio the same, but I doubled my resolution. And is what I thought I'd be doing here was giving Instagram more to work with, so when it did compress my files down, I'd almost end up back where I started. But that didn't work. Because the resolutions were double, Instagram pretty much did double the amount of work to them and ended up compressing them to potato quality. So didn't work at all. So that's pretty much it for resolution and aspect ratio. So we're going to come into Premiere in a minute and we're going to set up some presets, or I'm going to put some presets in my description what you can download if you want to use them and add them to your own Premiere. So the next thing we need to have a look at is frame rate. Now this is where it starts getting a little bit difficult, especially if you're creating content for other platforms. So I'm based in England, so we shoot pretty much everything at 25 FPS or 50 FPS. So when Instagram's converting our work to 30 FPS, this is where things are becoming a little bit more tricky and a bit more difficult. Even if you're in America and you're shooting stuff at 60 FPS or 29 FPS, or if we're going down a filmic route and shooting at 24 FPS, when we put it on Instagram, it's all that scrapped and it's going to end up at 30 FPS. So my rule of thinking here is it's better to get our content at 30 FPS as soon as possible. So that might mean modifying our footage at the very first stage, especially if we know it's going to end up on Instagram. If the project is going to be shown elsewhere predominantly, I wouldn't really worry about this too much. But if you know you are making a video for Instagram, this is one step which I would definitely follow. So we're going to have a quick look at this sequence. So this is the pancake B-roll I did. This is my 1-day B-roll challenge I set myself, and I think it came out pretty well indeed. I'm really, really happy with it. If you do want to see this video, it's on my YouTube, so definitely check that out. And there's also a bit of behind the scenes on my Instagram, which is @DanielHallMedia. So make sure to check that out too if you like that sort of thing. There is some awesome content on my Instagram too, a lot of it which doesn't actually make its way over to YouTube, so check that out. So let's have a quick look at how to modify our frame rate in Premiere. As I was just saying, if you know your video is going on Instagram, this is great to do at the start of a project. But if your video is going to other places as well, it's probably better to use the exporter of that video, stick it into Premiere and modify that clip and export it as a separate clip for Instagram. So then you've got your frame rate right on another platform and the frame rate right on Instagram. But if you do that method, we're going to bump into a couple of problems, which I'll show you now. So it's really, really easy to modify a clip in Premiere. So I've done that thing again. I've started recording the entire tutorial without recording the screen. So I'm doing this again. You think I'd learn from my lessons, but nope, not happening. Right, so the first problem with this video going onto Instagram was actually my fault. I was trying to be cool, film it cinematic, so I exported and edited my video at 24 FPS, which is now no good because it's going to get converted to 30 FPS. So I need to modify the video so it's 30 FPS. Now this does come with a couple of problems which I'm going to go over now. So let's have a quick look at modifying the clip. So all we're going to do is right click, go down to modify and go to interpret footage. And as you can see up here, we've got a frame rate. So we can change the frame rate from 24 and we can assume frame rate to 30. Now, just look at what happens to the duration. And this is one of the big problems, what we're going to start dealing with. So currently we're at 24 FPS and the video is 49 seconds and 21 frames long. Now, if we assume a frame rate of 30 FPS, the duration has dropped down to 39 seconds and 27 frames. Now what's going on here is because we've got a difference in frame rate of 6 FPS, the video is now playing back quicker because it has to play back more frames per second. So that in turn is making our video shorter. Now for me, this becomes quite a problem because we have edited this video at a certain length for a desired platform. And sometimes, you know, you might have a brief sheet or a spec sheet which says your video has to be delivered in 24 FPS, for example. So when we're now changing the frame rate, we're not only changing the frame rate, we're also changing the duration for our Instagram, which I'm not sure I quite agree with. So if you guys do have a better way of doing this and a better workflow, leave it in the comments below because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like I was saying, it doesn't quite sit right with me where I've got to change the frame rate of my video to fit Instagram's platform, but that's just what we've got to do. So we're kind of stuck in this situation really. Anyway, I'm going to assume the frame rate at 30 and hit OK. So now we've got a 30 frames per second piece. Now we need to make a couple of presets for our sequences in Premiere so we can do this over and over again. So to do this, we're just going to make a new sequence by clicking new item down here and hit sequence. As you can see, I've already made these in the past bit, which I didn't record, but we'll go over these again. So go to settings and we're going to make our preset here. So as I just said, we need a 30 frames per second for our Instagram. So that's going to be tick number 1. And we also need a frame size of 1080 by 1920 for stories and reels. So we've got 1080 by 1920 here. Just make sure yours are the same. And that gives us the aspect ratio of 9:16. The third is the bit rate, but we'll come to that a bit later on. So now we're happy with everything here. Just hit save preset and we'll call this Insta Stories and Reels. And like I was saying, these presets will be down below in the description. So if you do want to download them and add them to Premiere, you can do that if you like. So we'll hit OK. And there we go. In our custom, we've got stories and reels. And I'll just do one for our normal Instagram feed as well. So for this, we again want a time base of 30 frames a second. That's always the case for Instagram. We always want the horizontal to be 1080. We never need the horizontal to be more than 1080 on Instagram. So that's again 1080. And this time we want our vertical to be 1350. So this is going to give us a pixel aspect ratio of 4:5, which is just when people are scrolling their Instagram feed. This is going to take up most of the screen, which is again exactly what we want. So them settings are all okay. So I'm just going to hit save preset and we'll call this one Insta Feed. So now we've got these presets in the custom box down here if we ever need to use them again, which I'm sure we'll be using them a lot. And as I was saying, both these presets are in the description below, so if you do want to download them, feel free. For the rest of the video, we're going to pretend we're doing a story. So let's go with that. So now when we drag our clip into the sequence, we're going to get a clip mismatch warning, and it is correct, there is a clip mismatch. So what's going on here is our original video is 1920 by 1080, but we're going into 1080 by 1920 sequence. So it is fine. So we don't want to change the sequence settings because that'll just put it back to widescreen. We're going to keep the existing settings, and here we go. So what we've got now is we've got a weird kind of crop going on where we've got the black at the top and the bottom. And this is exactly how our video would appear on Instagram. So we want to totally avoid that. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Effect Controls and just zoom in the video and reframe it ever so slightly. Now, as you can see, the reframing isn't perfect. This is because it's just a center crop and we've not really paid much attention to recomposing each individual shot. Now, if you check my YouTube channel, I'll put the link above as well. I've done a full tutorial on using Premiere's Auto Reframe. It is such a powerful tool, and if you are putting all this time in to make your videos perfect for Instagram, I definitely recommend watching that tutorial and using both these tutorials together to make the perfect video. Honestly, the Auto Reframe tool in Premiere is absolutely amazing, and it'll reframe and perfectly compose all your shots for any Instagram resolution. So definitely check that video out. Honestly, your videos will be looking so good on your Instagram when you follow both these tutorials together. I would go over it in this tutorial, but it's going on too long as it is. But yeah, so I love that shot of the mixture coming off the whisk. The last thing to bear in mind is the length of our videos. For Reels, we've got a limit of 15 seconds. For our Instagram feed, we've got a limit of 60 seconds. And for our stories, we've got block chunks of 15 seconds. So it's definitely something to bear in mind. So because of that, I'm just going to knock this video down to 15 seconds. So it'll go on to my Reels. There we go. And for any videos longer than 60 seconds, we've got IGTV as well. So that's pretty much it now for the Premiere side of things. Earlier on in the video, I did mention there was 3 things we need to get right for Instagram. One was resolution and pixel aspect ratio, which we've got a big tick by now. One was frame rate, which has now got another tick. And the last thing we now need to look at is bitrate, which we'll find in our export settings. So we'll hit Ctrl and M on the keyboard, and this brings up our export settings. First thing we need to look at is our format, and Instagram works in H.264. So we'll make sure that's set there. And looking down here, our width and height are 1080 by 1920, which is exactly what we're looking for. Our frame rate is 30, again, exactly what we're looking for. So let's just scroll down to our bit rate to get the third bit of our Instagram sequence right. We're going to change our bitrate encoding to VBR2pass, which just means a variable bitrate, and it's going to go through the export twice just to make sure everything's pixel perfect. Takes a little bit longer, but definitely worth it for the quality. And we're going to knock the bitrate down to 3. Now this absolutely kills me. I like exporting my videos with the highest bitrate possible, especially if I'm uploading to YouTube, but I'd rather do it myself than Instagram compress it and then have it look like a potato. So there we go, we've got both of these at 3. So I'm just going to make a new preset and call this Insta Stories and Reels. Again, so just if we need to come back to this, we can very quickly do that. So everything's all right there. Again, it did kill me to knock the bitrate down, but what else can we do? We've got to match Instagram settings as much as we can. So unfortunately, if that's what their settings are, this keeps the size down. As you can see, we're working with 6 megabytes now, which is easy to transfer to our phones and easily and quickly uploadable to Instagram. Also, it just ensures that because it's such a low bit rate, where anyone around the world on any kind of internet can watch the videos. So I believe that's why they have such a low bit rate. But let's hit export, and there we go. So it's just going to do the export twice just to make sure everything's correct. But yeah, I hope you've learned something about the Instagram video formats and settings. I hope you've learned how to set these sequences perfectly in Premiere and how to export them too. So as I said at the start, there was 2 principles which we was following. Number 1 was our resolutions are now going to be taking up as much as a user's screen real estate as possible. So when your audience is scrolling, your content is there in their face, and there's going to be no weird black bars on the reels, which is, you know, it just looks so bad. And now we're avoiding that situation. As I did say earlier, I do recommend looking at the auto reframe tutorial as well. That'll just help you guide you through the process of making your videos perfectly composed for these different resolutions too. Thank you very much for watching. The video went on a little bit longer than I expected, but I do think the information is very important, especially when we're working with Instagram. And if you did like this video and you've liked the other videos on my channel, please like, comment and subscribe. As I mentioned earlier, it does mean the absolute world to me, and we are getting a little bit of momentum at the moment. I want to keep that up, so there will be a lot more videos coming up soon. Make sure to head over to my Instagram as well. There is so much content on there, and like I was saying earlier, not all of that content makes its way to YouTube. My Instagram is @DanielHallMedia. But yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. I do greatly appreciate it. It does make me so happy to see what people are watching these videos. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'll see you either on Instagram or on my next video. Thanks again. Cheers.